You're listening to an African Elements Top News story for July 18, 2025. Please visit our website at africanelements.org for more daily news. East Africa's Economic Ascendance by Darius Spearman. East Africa is entering a new era of economic vibrancy. The region is set to see substantial growth, reaching 5.7% in 2025, up from 5.1% in 2024. This positive trend is fueled by strategic public infrastructure investments. Ethiopia and Kenya are leading the charge. Ethiopia is projected to achieve the highest GDP in the region by 2025, nearing $121 billion. Meanwhile, Kenya's GDP is expected to reach approximately $117 billion. For African communities in the diaspora, this economic rise signals significant opportunities. It encourages trade relationships, investments, and cultural exchange. Strong economies create stability and attract global attention. This growth helps to reshape narratives about Africa on the global stage. Kenya's real GDP growth is expected to remain robust at 5.2%. Real GDP growth, unlike nominal GDP, adjusts for inflation, providing a true measure of economic expansion. This growth reflects an increase in actual goods and services produced. It indicates a healthy, expanding economy. Moreover, Kenya's tax-to-GDP ratio stands at 11.5%, showing its ability to mobilize domestic resources. This ratio means the government collects 11.5% of the country's total economic output in taxes. This capacity is vital for funding public services and infrastructure without excessive reliance on external borrowing. East Africa, generally referring to the East African Community, EAC, countries such as Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania, faces both opportunities and challenges. While economic growth is high, the region still grapples with significant debt levels and external shocks. Fiscal tightening, which involves cutting government spending or raising taxes, is often necessary to manage these debts. Although it can stabilize public finances, it may also slow economic growth in the short term. It can also lead to budget cuts for social programs. For example, Kenya and Tanzania face higher public debt burdens due to historic infrastructure financing and external borrowing. Despite these hurdles, regional integration initiatives offer promising pathways for development. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, is a crucial agreement. It aims to create a single market for goods and services across Africa, boosting intra-African trade. The AfCFTA facilitates trade by reducing tariffs and harmonizing rules across the continent. This framework is particularly beneficial for East African economies as it provides access to larger markets. In addition, it promotes efficient resource allocation within the region. External shocks, such as global commodity price changes or pandemics, can disrupt trade and reduce investment, impacting economic stability. However, Africa as a whole shows resilience, with its economy projected to grow from 3.3% in 2024 to 3.9% in 2025. Public infrastructure investments are a cornerstone of East Africa's economic boom. These investments include government or development partner-funded projects that build essential services like roads, ports, airports, and power plants. These projects are critical for stimulating economic activity and improving connectivity. For instance, Kenya's Lamu Port, a $3 billion project, and the upgrade of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, a $1.9 billion investment, exemplify major public infrastructure efforts. In addition, Tanzania's Julius Nyerere hydroelectric power project addresses power shortages crucial for industrial demand. These projects improve trade and the movement of goods, boosting overall economic growth. The African Development Bank has committed substantial funds, including $2.5 billion for infrastructure development in Tanzania. This funding supports critical road networks like the Arusha-Namanga-Athi River Road and the Dodoma International Airport project, enhancing regional connectivity. Infrastructure development and expansion of power generation capacity, including hydroelectric, geothermal, wind, and solar energy, supports industrialization. This investment creates a solid foundation for sustainable growth and development, bringing tangible benefits to local communities and attracting further foreign direct investment. Achieving significant poverty reduction in Africa requires sustained economic growth of 7% or more annually. This threshold creates enough jobs and income to lift large populations out of poverty. Many African countries are striving towards this goal. In fact, 21 African countries are expected to achieve growth exceeding 5% in 2025, with several hitting the 7% mark. This strong economic performance is vital for improving living standards across the continent and fostering inclusive growth. A crucial strategy for sustainable development is mobilizing domestic resources. This means increasing government revenues through taxes and other means to fund national priorities. Africa has the potential to mobilize an additional $1.43 trillion by improving tax and non-tax revenue strategies. Higher tax revenues empower governments to invest in critical infrastructure and social welfare, underpinning long-term growth. This approach reduces dependence on foreign aid and loans, strengthening economic resilience. It also allows countries to better withstand external shocks and maintain their development trajectory. This self-reliance is especially important for the continued prosperity of African nations and their diaspora connections. While East Africa's economy is surging, the larger African continent faces challenges within some key sectors. The cocoa industry, a critical agricultural sector, primarily in West Africa, faces significant pressures. These pressures include the impacts of climate change, fluctuating global prices, and sustainability concerns. These factors directly affect production stability and the livelihoods of farming communities. Although the cocoa sector in East Africa is smaller, it remains vital for export earnings and poverty reduction in communities where it is cultivated. Global headwinds, such as inflation and supply chain disruptions, further increase production and transport costs for cocoa farmers. These challenges squeeze profit margins and create uncertainty in global markets. Uncertain global markets impact commodity prices, which are critical for many African producers. This is why developing a diverse economy that is not overly reliant on one or two commodities is a prudent strategy for African nations. The resilience of Africa's economy, however, is a positive sign. The continent's short-term outlook remains strong despite global economic and political headwinds. This resilience demonstrates the continent's growing capacity to manage economic challenges. It also shows its commitment to sustainable growth. The collective efforts to mobilize domestic resources and foster regional trade through initiatives like the AfCFTA contribute to this resilience. These measures help African economies adapt and thrive in an ever-changing global economic landscape. Therefore, supporting these domestic industries and fostering robust trade systems benefits all people of African descent. It ensures that the economic gains are inclusive and sustainable. Copyright, African Elements.